It's 13 years on, obviously, from the original film.
Yes.
And on paper, and I was going to say this before, on paper, I guess it must have looked to people from the outside world that actually you've got the assets there, the characters there, but a lot changes in 13 years in the world of technology. And how was it?
Yeah, imagine going to your computer that you had 13 years ago and trying to reboot that software and use it.
Yeah. Doesn't work.
Yeah.
So everything has to be started from scratch.
Everything, even the scenes in the beginning where it seemed like we were using the old movie, all redone.
All new.
Yeah. And it was actually good. That was a good testing place for us, actually, because we wanted to make sure that we felt as though people who had seen the first film weren't kind of thrown, that the look was so different. But we also wanted to take advantage of all the new technology, so we kind of used that as a great test case for, we have this scene in the old film, we're redoing it in this film, so how can we make sure we're kind of keeping it in the same world?
And obviously there's so much affection for the original characters. Was it really difficult deciding which characters would make it to Finding Dory?
You know, you don't get presented to it like that in a weird way. You think you would because that's how you're thinking about it from the outside. But for us, we're just going, look, this is Dory's story. What does she need? And we know we need MacLane Nemo. That's the family she's with. Who's she looking for? It's our old family. We know we need that. And then as you work for the next 3.5 years, the story kind of tells you what characters need to be there. I fought for a long time not to put Crush in the film.
Yeah.
And you won.
Well, what happened was I said I think the audience is going to want it, and I think because you did the voice, you were like, it seems cheap. But then I went to Disneyland with my family, and I'd never been to the Crush ride, the Turtle Talk, and to see the way that
exist in the Paris?
Is it? I think it's here. But the way that the families and kids knew all the lines of Crush, and there was something about the energy of Crush, and it was totally separate from Nemo that after I went to Disneyland, I tried to convince, and came back. I was like, we got to figure out a way to get them in there. The Crush fans is huge. I had no idea it was such a.
They're going to be angry.
They're going to be. You have no idea what it's like.
You don't want to make it.
But even that didn't convince me until we realized we have to get across the ocean fast.
Yeah.
And that was the.
And then you were like, I know a guy.
Yeah. And then I know a guy. Yeah.
I was like, all right. Yeah. I'll do it.
And you were a voice too.
Yeah, I did a couple of. I did. Watch where you're going. The
Charlie
sunfish,
back and forth.
And I did. Looks like we're done here. And yeah, so.
And I was the voice of the big mouth clam.
Lindsey, did you get a look?
I could answer everything today like that if you like.
We're going to keep to that.
Okay.
Or maybe not.
Yeah.
That reminds me of a story. No.
Lindsey, did you get to play at voices?
I've done it on other films, and on this film, the scene where he says,
Looks like we're done here.
And then I was like, dude, cut it out, you're a scientist.
Come on, it's funny.
Yeah, that was actually me, but it's not me, because they had to replace me, because they got mad.
They got a Lindsey impersonator.
They were like, you can't do that when you're the producer. But my daughter is the voice of Baby Dory.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So,
so
that was, if I was going to pick a battle, I was like, well.
Which is the most adorable voice. Like we had to work hard to make sure that the cuteness of Dory visually matched the cuteness of that voice.
Yeah, she's pretty cute.
Yeah. You have to live with her. We just.
I
get to
know.
record
I'm like,
her.
yeah, she's super cute.
I mean, the fact that the film is taken 13 years.
It didn't take 13 years.
What I'm saying, it's 13 years
took
since
3
the
years
original
to make.
film.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is, I take it therefore that it wasn't something you had originally planned to do.
Oh no, nobody plans that. Oh yeah, in 13 years, everybody's going to want to see this.
Right.
And actually, you know, every film we do at Pixar takes about 3 to 4 years at best, and so you're done. I mean, you're done with whatever. I don't care how good the film is. Like 3 years, 4 years, that's college. That's high school. You're done. So I was done with fish. I'm like, I'm never coming back to the ocean. It's done. And the film did really well. Let's go do things with robots. Let's go to Mars. And
Who wants to go back to school? That guy.
Basically, 2011, they wanted to release it in 3D, and they asked us to watch it. And so we went back into the theater to watch it from in a big theater like this. And I hadn't done that in 7 years. And I think I saw it for the first time objectively like an audience member. And I walked out completely unsatisfied with Dory's arc. I was like, oh my gosh, she could get lost tomorrow. She could forget MacLane Nemo. She doesn't know where her parents are. I know her backstory. I know she wandered the ocean her whole life, and she's got abandonment issues, and she has self-acceptance issues. And as a writer, I was like, I completely dropped the ball. I wanted her to be at peace, basically. So it was a very personal, sort of almost parental thing that motivated me to want to go back to it after all that time.
But did you worry about the fact that Dory is such a great kind of supporting character that to suddenly make her the focus of the film, that's quite a different, I mean, there's a lot of work has to go into making
I
that
worried
work.
about it a little bit because we had done Monsters University and I'd seen how hard it was to make Mike Wazowski suddenly be the lead. But I knew we had conquered it and you could figure it out. But I did not expect the short-term memory loss to be such a problem for a main character. This may be a little heady, but like the reason you can follow a main character in a story is because they can tell you how they're changing as they go through the movie. They can talk to somebody and say, I was scared at breakfast, but now that you've talked to me, I'm not scared anymore at lunch. Yeah. And she can't do that.
Right.
Yeah, she's like, what did I have for breakfast? I don't remember.
Yeah, and so
Have we met?
Which actually, I don't remember.
and
what I
so
had
you
for
had
breakfast.
no sense, and so for 2 years we were battling. Like she just kept seeming simplistic and not really changing, and you weren't really investing in anything. And so there's a grocery list of tricks that we finally learned that are all in the film now for how to kind of really keep you invested and track along with her, even though she can't remember a lot.
And how aware were you in terms of, I don't know, the sort of sensitivities around dealing with something like short-term memory loss? Because there is a sort of a wider kind of, I mean, or did you just not allow that to...
Well, I think we in a weird way, because Dory was so beloved as a character. I mean, and it's almost like watching kind of your kids after they've left the house, kind of what they make of themselves. And so Dory had kind of stopped being ours for a long time, out in the general kind of public. And so, and everybody so loved her that I don't think all we wanted to do was, I think, make sure that we were being true to that, and that we didn't ever make her seem silly or stupid, because that's not the impression that anybody has of her. So we were always kind of checking that to make sure. And the good news was, because of Ellen, she brings such kind of an intelligence and a wit and a street smart
Subtlety.
and a subtlety to it that it so kind of it marries. And anytime we kind of crossed the line, it was very clear to us that we had. So we'd go back and rewrite. But I think that was always. I think we all had so much respect and loved Dory so much that it was never a fear of ours that we would ever cure her in a weird way. Like, that was never the goal, to cure her. And it was also never a threat of, like, how do we make her seem silly or kind of undermine who she is, because she was just too beloved, I think, for all of us.
And how does it work in terms of the process and the the time when you're working on the film, in terms of having a co-director and so forth? How do you kind of work out who has responsibility for which?
A lot of people don't realize the co-director thing has been along since Toy Story. It's just we didn't have a name for it at the time. I was always John's right-hand man. I always said I was Robin to his Batman. And it wasn't that I had a vision and I was trying to like share it. It was I was just like the main supporter of whatever his vision was. And I was able to not only be two places at once for him, on Toy Story, but I was able to be the guy that he could trust when everybody else was saying no. I could go, I think you should say yes. Or if everybody was saying yes, I'm like, I think they're all kissing your ass, and we should just say no. And that I saw the power of that. So Lee Unkrich was that for me on Nemo, and Angus has been that for me on this film. And it's a pretty powerful dynamic.
A lot of it is absorbing from very early on, before the movie was announced. Andrew came to me and said, I'm thinking about doing another Nemo, and before we tell anyone about it, like, I want to bring you in so that as a co-director you would be able to, from the very beginning, you would always be able to carry what I have envisioned for the movie, and we talked a little bit about what we might want to see in this movie. So it was great to be there from the very beginning and be connected to the DNA of the film. It is interesting, though. I think Andrew also said, I want you to do what isn't being done. So a lot of it is just a wide variety of things to help support his vision. So
You try to mind meld, so that like if you're asking Angus a question, you're pretty good chance you're going to get the same answer as if you asked me. So.
And Pixar obviously famously has this brains trust, where a group of the kind of directors and producers and guys watch and kind of comment on the future work, so to speak. And I know obviously you're part of that process, but how is it being on the receiving end of it?
Oh, it sucks being on the receiving end of it.
It's brutal.
Nobody's mean, but
No,
nobody couches anything, because they get that like you're in the big leagues. You're here to make a movie work, and you're trying to make a movie work that's for all ages and all over the globe. And you don't think about that every day, or else it would shut you down. You actually trick yourself into thinking you're just making it for you and your peers, and that's actually the healthiest thing to do. But at the end of the day, it still has to work. And the reason you listen to them, whoever it happens to be, the collection of people at the time, because the brain trust is large, it can change, is because they have no agenda. They have no skin in the game for it to have to be good or bad. It's not. They just are other filmmakers doing the same thing you are, fighting their films every day. So you really trust them. And when they tell you something's not working, or if they all seem to be nodding and saying, this sounds like a good way to go versus that, you have to pay attention to it. You don't have to do the note, but you don't have to do exactly what they say. It's never that, but you have to address it somehow. Because nobody would be saying anything unless something was wrong.
It was. I mean, we screened the movie 9 times.
9 times.
9 times.
Basically, you
I
put
have
on
it
the
right
plate
here on my
9 times
computer.
every 4 months.
Yeah, and so, I mean, that's a lot of kind of putting stuff out there that isn't working. I mean, it's not as though every time we screened it, we were like, this is
perfect,
amazing.
Yeah.
Well, most of the time, you're putting it up there going like, this is not working.
Yeah.
And you're just kind of not clear on where it isn't working or where, what is working sometimes because you've forgotten. So it's incredibly helpful, but incredibly humbling.
Yeah.
And sometimes for the sake of the movie, you have to lose characters and lose
Yes.
bits of plot. I mean, that must be tough.
You lose stuff, although having done it for decades now, you just go in knowing that's going to happen. You're going to lose a lot of stuff you've spent years
just
working on.
It's trial and error. A lot of the solutions for your movie, it's like a river, and the solutions will be kind of going by in the river, and you need to pick out the right things before they go away and you forget about them. Oftentimes, some of the solutions are things that have already gone by that you need to bring
Yeah.
back
Yeah.
and go, well, that didn't work before for these reasons, but now that the story has changed, we could use these elements now.
Yeah.
A lot of it's keeping track of
There
it.
was, for almost 2 years, there was an entire storyline where Marlin and Nemo got separated from Dory early when the squid chased them, and they didn't even know where she went. And they got stuck in the
Containers.
container yard, the container graveyard, and they bumped into the tank gang, all stuck in one water bottle, sealed. Like, how the heck did that happen? And it turned out we made them this crack Mission Impossible team. Once they got out of their bags, they went everywhere. They went over the DMZ, done everything. And they helped Marlin and Nemo through all these crazy adventures with flying fish and everything, like make it and find her. And it was really funny, but it was a lot of scenes. And one of the things that was really hard to face after about a year of looking at it was that every time we were with them, we were forgetting Dory's agenda, and it was diluting you caring about her as you went through the movie. And so it was for a moment, it was a hard thing to cut, but the second we did and simplified it to what you see now in this film, and the issue became between Marlin and Nemo and how they felt about Dory, everything just improved 100% in the film.
And we touched on the fact that the technology has changed hugely in 13 years, but every year technology in this area is changing and developing. And you've had to face some massive kind of challenges here, like everything from shallow water to deep water to refraction to reflection to I mean all those sort of intricacies, and even the human environment, the industrial and human environment of the Marine Life Institute. I wonder how do you kind of prepare for that in terms of the research trips and that kind of stuff?
We took a lot of research, trips to various aquariums and rescue centers and try to see as much of the background we could. We also obviously learn about the animal behavior and make sure that we're being kind of taking advantage of anything we can from an animal behavior standpoint. I think, if you watch Nemo today and go back today, you should, because double feature, just in reverse. You'll notice that we stay away, for instance, in the dentist office, like you almost never see the corners of the tank. In the glass tank, and that's because we couldn't. The renderer we use could not kind of calculate the refraction of the water in the 2 corners of the glass.
You're learning science, kids.
It's very important stuff I'm teaching you. That's like I have no idea what I'm talking about. But this new renderer we have, obviously, it does actually all of that calculation in real time. So we were able to do. That's why you see us breaking the water surface.
Breaking
all
the
the
water
time,
surface was so hard to do. We barely did it in the first one.
and glass, and you're seeing constant glass containers. I mean, like it's.
Now you can do all that stuff. It's like, but it's like buying a computer now that can do so much, and it's like, oh, this does more than what I ever need. But you end up doing everything you can with it.
Right.
You maximize your appetite.
Your appetite
just grows.
Yeah.
And we've got Hank there behind us, but
Yeah.
he actually is also incredibly difficult to design and to actually animate, wasn't he?
He was a movie himself,
Yeah.
Yeah.
2.5
in time
years,
and
right?
labor.
2 years to make the model itself before even moving it around. And the challenges of Hank are based around the fact that he doesn't really have a skeleton per se, but it's sort of constantly undulating, which is a really challenging thing to animate. Also, the way that each of the tentacles moves. One tentacle takes a long time with the suckers, and the way that the meat of the tentacle like slides in on itself, and the musculature and the suckers, and that's ×7. That's actually why we got rid of one of the tentacles. Because
Good producing.
Originally,
No, 7 tentacles. That's it.
Wasn't there a moment where
There
we
was a
wanted to have
moment.
him in the movie say, they didn't want to render my other tentacle, that's why I'm a septipus.
Yeah.
I think what there was I remember there was a meeting where the technical came to us like, okay, look, we have 7 tentacles. If you want another one, after this point, it's going to get really expensive. So we need to hold hands. And this was before we'd had the joke about the septipus, and so it had to be this thing we kind of put in there. It was a little bit like Mickey Mouse only has 5 or 4 fingers because it's just less to draw.
Also, it's the first shot, one of the first shots we did with him, which is this in the quarantine when you see him from the side on a wide shot trying to pickpocket the tag off of Dory twice. That took an animator 6 months to do. Yeah, we had our own rap party when that shot.
I don't know whether this is a question you can answer or not, but if you can try and put yourself back after the first film, and if at that point 13 years ago you'd had to make a sequel, do you think this would have ended up as the same?
No, I don't think so. I think it would have been. I bet you it would have been about Dory, because that would have been something that only had. Because anything I knew about Dory's, we're still there 13 years later. What was missing from her? She's the only character that still had stuff really missing, that was meaty, that had enough from a writer standpoint to just dig into.
Could have done Hank, so
but
Hank would have been off the table.
Hank wouldn't have been there.
Hank wouldn't have been
I think also the manner in which we had to solve this story. It took the most intelligent crew I'd ever had. I mean, between these two and my writer Victoria Strauss and my Max Brace and my story team, and my editor Axel Geddes, I couldn't have. It's the smartest think tank I ever had, and it brought us to our knees like so many times. I don't see how we could have solved it sooner. So yeah.
I'm gonna open up and try and get some questions from the audience. Before I do that, there's a question which somebody gave me who is called Hayley, and she says she's too shy to ask this question herself. So I'm just going to read it for her. She says, "How did the team study for the characteristics, especially the whale shark? Was there anything from what you learned that touched you personally?"
For the whale shark?
Where is Hayley? I mean, at least
She's
she
too
may be
shy to say. She's too shy. She's
Over there. Hi, Haley.
Hi, Haley.
Yeah, good.
I just wanted a big Muppet. Like
Yeah,
a big oven mitt. Like
Sherry
I
Lewis
kept
and
doing
Lamb
this.
Chops
I
was
literally,
the-
Sherry Lewis, like here from the 50s, she was like that. She did Lamb Chop. I remember telling them, I just want Lamb Chop. I just want like that.
Yeah.
Little eyes, talking. Because I just thought, like, for as large as a whale shark is, they're just adorable looking, right?
And Pipe Pals was there from the very beginning as a concept. I mean, we loved, some of this was trying to figure out what clues we'd left ourselves on the first film of where Dory was from or what and one of the clues obviously is that she speaks whale.
Yeah, so how?
And so we were like, how does
And she doesn't speak it well, so
no, and
it can't be an
it's-
actual whale.
And it's kind of unclear that she actually does speak whale. So then we were like, okay. So we were kind of, that was always something that we were playing around with, was that she had to have had somebody from her childhood that taught her to do this. So that's when, I mean, we kind of came up with the whale shark.
Yeah.
And you've got the perfect people to voice their parents as well. I mean, Diane Keaton.
Oh, Diane Keaton and Eugene Levy.
Everybody that you see in this film was our first choice. That's one of the nice things about a sequel to a popular film is that all the agents return your phone calls.
Yeah.
And,
I don't think Diane Keaton's voiced a character.
She
She's
had
never
not.
voiced a
No, so-
character.
No,
That's,
we feel so honored.
Yeah,
I know.
she's
And
really
she
great.
was amazing. She makes you cry.
Here we
All
go.
right.
Report, Angus.
Okay, so it's 90, it's 80, sorry, it's 87 minutes.
I got a calculator.
Yeah.
And 90 feet a minute, right?
Well, and each foot has 16 frames.
Wait, so
16
16
frames,
times 90.
90
right,
times.
No, but that's 9. That's not 90
9
feet.
times-
It's not 90. That's 90 minutes.
No,
So
just
90
tell me what
feet
to
a
add.
minute, 90 feet a minute. So times
What-
8.
what
Which is the
so
brain's trust and operation.
24 frames
24
a second.
frames a second. So that's
Times
times
60.
90.
Times
times
90.
60 times 90.
Yeah.
I feel like when maybe fast forward half an hour ahead.
24 frames a
24.
second.
24
times
times
60.
60
Times 90.
times 90.
You could make it up and they wouldn't know.
129,600 frames.
There you go.
If you feel that
You can round that out to 130,000 frames.
Yeah.
Well, both were different. The first one was because I was a father of a young son in the late mid-90s. And I also grew up in a little town by the ocean, and I had a dentist office that had a fish tank in it. And I used to sit there and think it was so weird for fish to stare at people having their teeth worked on. And I thought, what if a fish got lost and got put into that tank? But it wasn't until I was going out with my son to the park, and he was 6 or 7, and I thought I had been busy, I hadn't spent enough time with him, and I'm going to be a real good dad, and we're going to have a great day. And I spent the whole day going, don't touch that, watch out, don't run to the street, you don't know where that's been. And I was so concerned and worried and overprotective that I kind of ruined the day. And I realized, wow, here I am, a father that loves my son, and I want not only the best, and I can't get out of my own way. And I thought that must be a really common problem. So suddenly I put the whole thing together. So that whole story about Marlin is me. I'm Marlin, basically. And then the second movie, these characters already existed. I'm not Dory. None of us are Dory. So we kind of had to come from the outside in and go, who is Dory, and where's she from? She doesn't know herself, and where is she trying to figure out? But I did know that she had traveled the ocean, when I wrote the first movie, that she had traveled the ocean by herself for years, and didn't know why, and didn't know how, but because of her short-term memory loss, she probably had met fish after fish after fish and lost them, or they had ditched her because she drove them nuts. And so she probably had this horrible sense of abandonment that was her fault. And I think that's why she became really good at being funny, really good at caretaking, really good at being helpful, because it was her armor. It was her way of, maybe you won't leave me. And that's why she was so friendly with Marlin. So with that evidence, we sort of kind of came from the outside in and learned about her. So it was more of an outside in from the second one.
Some of it was because we knew where we were going to be. So the fact that we knew that we were going to be on the northern coast of California, so then we went, okay, there's otters and there's sea lions and loons. Those are all animals that live around there. And then we wanted a whale, some sort of whale or whale shark.
Yeah.
And then the rest were usually animals that we thought were really funny
Unusual,
looking.
yeah.
Like
the
Bailey.
beluga,
Like
yeah.
beluga whales. I
No,
mean,
that's funny looking. Or look, we didn't actually see how the melon is officially called undulated was so disturbing that we knew it had to be in a movie.
And otters, yeah.
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 I think it's kind of what we're fascinated by and what would complement.
And we
the other
needed a character
characters.
to be best friends with Dory that could get her across a park when there was no water. And we realized the most ambulatory, sneaky escape artist of all the sea life creatures is the octopus.
Yeah.
Any of our real life
places.
Real life places. Well, actually, the Marine Life Institute is very much designed based on an aquarium called the Monterey Bay Aquarium in Monterey, which is just south of San Francisco, and it has a natural little cove that water comes in around, and that there's sort of an observatory around, and we really like that because you just visually it can tell you that it's appreciative of the environment of the ocean and trying to be conservation minded, and we loved that. Just visually, it said so much.
It
So
also featured the Star Trek Ford in there as well.
yes,
did,
that's
yeah.
true for some of you that
Sorry,
really
sorry.
care. Like, because they scare the crap out of me. And sometimes the way I can not like them scare me anymore is because I can
Is like put
actually
'em in the movie.
put them in the movie
Yeah.
and learn how they're actually made and see how they work, and then they don't seem so scary to me.
There is something terrifying of something coming out of the dark.
Yeah.
There's a lot of support for putting the Kraken in the movie. We didn't. This is the closest thing we could do to release the Kraken without saying "release the Kraken." So it's a nod to the
Yeah.
Kraken.
Your tribute to Ray Harryhausen.
Yeah.
Yes. How old are you now?
5.
Well, the soonest we could get one to you is when you're 9. I don't know if you're willing to wait, but I think that's the very soonest.
There are lots of more Pixar movies.
Yeah, there'll be more
coming.
Pixar movies every year.
but
I don't know about the
I don't
Finding
know. We
ones.
haven't decided
Yeah.
yet.
You may have to do Finding
So
Andrew
it's possible,
first.
though. But it's possible.
Yeah, it's possible.
Easiest
That's
character.
a good question.
That's a good question.
Yeah, it's the easiest character.
To make.
I mean, you mean to make the model itself, or the characterization?
I don't think she's parsing it.
I think. Well, here's what was easy is that having the characters from the first film, because we at least knew what they looked like.
I'm going to go
and
with
we-
Nemo because
yeah,
he's
Nemo.
small.
Nemo.
Well, here's the deal. If we wish we were that good at being able to predict which one of our movies is going to be ready at any given time, and the reality is we have about 6 or 7 films going at any given time, and at some point we all have to kind of sit down in a meeting and go, all right, is it this one or this one that feels more ready to go? And what's happened is
And it's not by title, it's by how good the story is.
it's like
working.
literally, is the story working? Which story is working to the point that we think we can start moving that into production? And so what's happened is we have all these plans of like sequel, original, and then none of that works. And so we are now in a situation where we have a couple sequels in a row, and then we have about 3 originals that are ready to go after that. So I think the answer to that question, because I read the article and I was like, oh, Jim. I gave Jim, who was the one who said it, a lot of grief about it. And he's like, I didn't say that. What it is that he's basically saying that right now we have a couple sequels lined up, and then we have a bunch of originals coming up right after that. And after that, who knows? Because it's all about
It's a good crowd to say this. Making stories, if you're trying to be honest with them, is like raising children, and you have no say about when they're going to really get their act together.
But it's true that Pixar, it's the original visionary who gets a chance to work on the sequel. Whereas-
Yeah.
Well, not just to get to work on it. It won't happen unless the original visionary wants it to.
Yeah.
So they may not do it, but they may endorse it. But for me, like, I wanted to do it. But that's why nothing happened with Nemo. Like, for as much as you see the rest of Hollywood going, oh, it's popular, let's jump on it for financial reasons or for popularity reasons or whatever, we don't.
a huge
We go, look we're going to be living this thing for 4 years in isolation with nobody watching us. This is not going to be fun unless we're doing it because we want to. So we wait until we're inspired.
So the plan right now, at least what we can say, is that there's a couple sequels coming out, and then there's about 2 or 3 original films that are in the
Cars
works.
and Incredibles, isn't there? Which is in it.
Yeah, and then you have Coco, which has been announced, which is coming out kind of in between those 2, and then beyond that is all originals right now. Now, that's not to say that next year when I'm sitting here, I'm like, right, what I said last year is actually not true anymore. So
Again, we don't know how the children will be acting next year.